Hello, welcome to this lecture. So, in this lecture, we will continue our design concepts that we were discussing about it in the previous lecture, which was lecture 7. So, in the continuation of that topic, we will again continue this in this lecture. So, now in this lecture, these are the topics that I will be discussing with you. So first we will see the fundamental assumption of working stress method. Then we will try to understand the concept of modular ratio. Then the concept of transformed section, then cracked and uncracked section. And then we will try to learn more about the requirements of the concrete cover. And then at last we will see some analytical aspects of design of reinforced concrete beams. So first, we will discuss about the fundamental assumptions in working stress method. So, well, I have introduced this working stress method in the previous lecture, and there we have seen the concept of permissible stresses. Now, in continuation to that, now we will be discussing about the fundamental assumption in the working stress method. Well, these are the assumptions that we generally consider when we are designing the concrete structure. They may not be completely true, but for the design purpose, we consider that. So the first assumption in working stress method is that the length of member remains same during the bending. That is, deformation is very small in comparison to the length. We will try to understand that with the diagram. So in this, you can see that if we consider this line as a beam, and if the load is applied on this beam, then obviously this beam will deflect, and the deflected part will be similar to this red line. So the vertical displacement of beam, I mean maximum vertical displacement of beam, which is generally below the load or at the center. So this displacement, this vertical displacement is very small as compared to the length of beam, this length of beam. So this length of beam is very large. So as compared to this length, this vertical displacement is very small, very small. So that is why we sometimes consider that the length of member is same during the bending. So that is our first assumption that we consider in this. Now next assumption is the plane section remain plane during the process of bending. That is, the shear deformation is neglected. Now here in this diagram, we will try to understand that when there is a load, like in the diagram, there is a beam which is subjected to a UDL. So because of this UDL, we know now this try to understand this red line. So in respect to the black beam and in respect to the red beam. So the red part is the deflected part and the black part is the original position. So now in this case, we assume that the section will be plane at all the time, at all instant of loading. And with this, we can say that now you can see that if we try to draw a vertical line uh, with respect to the neutral axis, then at all possible loading, the angle between them will be 90 degree. So this is what we do. So if now in this enlarged portion, now you can see here, this angle and the angle between this line, the angle between this line is 90 degree and it is always maintained. So this is what our assumption is, which means if the 90 degree angle is maintaining, which means the section will be plane all the time. If the angle is not uniform, then we can say that there may be some deformation in the beam because of the shear. So we do not consider that there is any shear deformation, and this angle will be maintained at all loading. So that is our second assumption that we consider in this method. Now, the third assumption is tensile stress, all the tensile stress are taken by the steel and none by concrete. Well, This is an assumption, but in practically, it is not true. Some tensile stress is also borne by concrete because concrete also has some tensile strength, but that tensile strength as compared to the strength of steel is very less, and that is why sometimes we neglect that contribution of the concrete. Now, we will try to understand that with the help of this example. So in this example, I have taken the example of beam. So this is a cross section of a beam, and this line is called neutral axis. So above the neutral axis, if the beam is loaded, well, the beam is like this if there are supports, and if I cut a cross section like this and bars in the beam like this. So if I cut the cross section, then the cross section will look like this. Okay. So in this case, there are some dimensions like B. B is the width of beam, and D, capital D is the overall depth of beam, and small d is the effective depth of beam, and effective depth of beam is measured from the center of the reinforcement, and generally we provide reinforcement at extreme fiber. So center of the reinforcement to the uppermost, the topmost fiber. So this is called the small d, and small d is called effective depth. So now corresponding to this, if the beam is loaded, so because of that load across the cross section of this beam, how the cross section will behave. So we know that in this case, above the neutral axis, the beam will be under compression, and below the neutral axis, the beam will be under tension. And to resist that tension, we have provided the reinforcement at the tension side. So corresponding to this, this is the strain diagram. So I have expressed, so this psi, epsilon c, this is representing the strain in the concrete. So maximum deformation in compression will be at the extreme fiber, at the topmost, just below the load. So maximum deformation may occur at the extreme fiber, and that is why maximum strain will be at the uppermost fiber. And as we go down towards the neutral axis, the deformation level is decreased, but this variation is generally linear. This variation is linear, and at the neutral axis it is zero. So above neutral axis, the strain is because of the compressive force, and below the neutral axis, the concrete will be under tension, and tension will be borne by the reinforcement. So at the reinforcement level, the strain will be maximum, and at this neutral axis level, it will be zero. And corresponding to this, the next diagram is showing the stress level. Well, stress will be maximum where strain will be maximum. So corresponding to this, maximum stress will be here, and this I have represented by sigma c. This is actually sigma cbc, so which I have discussed in the previous lecture also. Sigma cbc is the permissible flexural compressive compression in bending. So maximum stress will be at the topmost fiber, and minimum compressive stress will be at tension. And because we assume that concrete is not taking the tension, so all the tension will be borne by the steel, and corresponding to the centroidal line of the steel, the maximum tensile stress will be at the steel level. So I am representing this with sigma st. Okay. So this is the diagram. So in this case, as now we can see with the stress diagram that the tension below this part, tension is not borne by the concrete, but by the steel. So that is our this assumption. Now next assumption is that no slippage. Next assumption is no slippage between concrete and the steel. Well, if there is a concrete block, and if there is a bar in it, so if we try to pull this bar will not get out. So if by chance, if we apply more pull, then the bar surface will be with some part of concrete also, because there is a perfect, we assume that there is a perfect bonding between the concrete and the bar, and therefore there will be no slippage. It means if we try to remove this bar, if we try to pull out this bar, the bar will not be plain. It will be with some part of concrete also. So that is why we consider that there is a good bonding, a perfect bonding between the concrete and the steel. Now next assumption is the stress strain relationship. The stress strain relationship of steel and concrete under the working load is a straight line, which means we consider, our material will always be in the elastic range. So we will see that using the diagram. So this diagram is of steel and this diagram is of concrete. So in the working stress method, we consider, the steel can take this much stress, but in the working stress method, we are considering the capacity of steel up to this only. And up to this line, we can see that the stress strain curve or stress strain relationship is linear. So this linear line is showing that Hooke's law is applicable. And similarly, we have discussed in the previous lecture also that initial part of the stress strain curve for concrete is linear. So that initial part, generally we consider this much stress, this much capacity of the concrete. But although the concrete capacity may be up to FCK level, this up to this level, but we are considering only this much part of the concrete, and up to this part we can say that this line is reasonably linear. So that is why this assumption holds good in this case, and in both case we are considering that they will follow a linear relationship. They will be under the elastic limit. Now next assumption is modulus of elasticity for all grades of steel is taken as this value. Es is represented as Young's modulus of elasticity of steel, and the value of Es will be 2 into 10 raised to power 5. So in all cases, in all type of steel, we will use Es value as 2 into 10 raised to power 5 Newton per mm square. And in other words, we can say that the stress in the elastic range is equal to the strain multiplied by Es. So we know that Es will be stress in steel upon the strain in steel. So if we try to find out the stress in steel, it will be equals to the Young's modulus of elasticity of steel multiplied by the strain in the steel. Okay, so this is how we can find out. So this is what it says, that this relation will hold good in this case. Now the next assumption is modulus of elasticity of concrete remains the same at all the stresses and does not change with the duration of the stress. Well, we have seen, again I am discussing about taking the reference of previous lecture. In the previous lecture I have discussed that modulus of elasticity of concrete is very complicated. Calculation of this modulus of elasticity of concrete is very complicated because of the presence of long-term strain and the short-term strain, and because of that it is very difficult to assess the value of the Young's modulus of elasticity. But still we are able to assess that, and IS code has given a formula to get the value of Young's modulus of elasticity in short term and in long term as well. So it says modulus of elasticity of concrete remains the same at all the stresses. Well, it is not true practically, but for ordinary design of concrete members, we can use this assumption because it will not give us much error, and that is why we consider that Young's modulus of elasticity will be same at all the stresses at all the time. Tensile strength of concrete is neglected. I think this assumption I have discussed again. Tensile strength of concrete will be neglected because the concrete tensile strength is about the 1/10th of its compressive strength. So that is also a major reason why we ignore the tensile strength of concrete. I mean, the contribution of concrete for tensile stress is ignored. So we will continue our discussion in the next part. Thank you.